Hello and welcome to a holiday edition of everybody's favorite YouTube show, Full Funnel. I'm your host Justin, and with me for this holiday edition to cover some NASCAR news, notes, whatever we might dive into, it's Jake.
What's up, guys? What's up, Jeff?
So, just before we started this recording, we started talking about RFK racing. What do you look for out of them? Um,
Well, what look for next season is now that they're a three-car team, just like Penske, just like 2311, and a couple others. Um, they are going to have more data to look through and comb through. Whereas the last 2 years, they've only had the two cars, and they can kind of get close, but they only have so much that they can try. And now they have a third team. They have more data. I'm looking for at least one, if not two, RFK cars in the playoffs. That's a little bit optimistic on my standpoint because I'm a longtime Roush guy. But I see at least both Brad and Chris Buescher getting to victory lane. I don't know if Priest has got it yet. He's shown flashes of it. He's shown he can win in a truck, but we haven't seen much out of him this year. This last 2 years. He's had flashes, but nothing consistent. I'd even argue that Josh Berry and Noah Gragson were a little more consistent than he was. Obviously, Briscoe being the top dog over there at SHR, but I think both Brad and Chris get the victory lane this year or this coming year.
so what do you think about the schedule for next year? Let's dive into that a little bit.
I think the Mexico race is definitely going to be interesting just logistically. Um, I'm looking forward to The Rock being back for the trucks in the Xfinity series. Um, on a personal note, I'm disappointed about Darlington getting moved away from Mother's Day weekend and not having all three series there for that weekend. I don't know if they're still going to do throwback weekend at the Spring Darlington race or not, but that's a race I've been to the last 2-3 years consistently. And one of the reasons I go to it is because I get to see all three series race there. But I think that this is going to be interesting. I'm glad that Daytona is the season finale again, but I'm glad that we're getting away from from California and the Clash, and we're going to an actual racetrack and not a manufactured racetrack inside a stadium. And it's good that NASCAR is returning to its roots, back to Bowman Gray, to the Madhouse. That place has a reputation, and with the way drivers have been racing here in the last 10 years, not even 10 years, probably I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, and especially this winning you're in pretty much since the playoff era. I think the Madhouse is going to live up to its name for the Clash.
I did too. Um, it if you agree with me, say so. But with the Clash going over to the to Bowling Green Stadium, I think that's going to be fantastic for NASCAR. I mean,
I think it is too, especially because it's going to be right there in their. I mean, arguably the core of the entire fan base. That's the blessing and the curse of being a NASCAR fan here in North Carolina. Is within 5 hours of me, I've got Richmond, Bristol, Rockingham, Wilkesboro, Charlotte, Darlington, Martinsville. I got all these tracks that are right here that I can get to easy and quick, relatively. That I think it's going to be a good turnout to the Madhouse there at Bowman Gray, there in Winston Salem.
So, so what do you expect that race to be like at Bowling Green Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina?
I expect it to be honestly a more intense Martinsville. I think they're going to have a little bit more room to race than they do at the Clash, but it's not going to be much more. It's a little bit bigger, but not much bigger. I mean, it's built around a football stadium. They're pretty much running around a track and field track.
Yeah.
So, but
Um,
I think that old asphalt that's there, they're not going to have as much grip as they do at the Clash. Um, I hope they set them up like them Bowman Gray boys do, because them Bowman Gray in the Sportsman series and the late models and stuff, they run around there loose. They're slipping and sliding, and I hope it's a lot like a late model race on a regular Saturday night at Bowman Gray versus a regular Cup Series race, especially with this next gen car. I think it would have been a lot more fun to watch these guys go around there in the Gen Sixes or previous cars, just because they don't have the grip that these new cars do.
so, so what do you think is going to happen? Um, do you, I want to cover something. And what do you think is going to happen during the Snowball Derby this weekend? Um,
Snowball Derby. I I haven't seen too much into that yet. I haven't really looked at it. Um, I know. I hope that Noah Gregson puts that JGR kid that was trying to one up him. I hope he takes care of him and teaches him a lesson. So, dude tried to wreck him in practice, but that's my personal opinion. I'm not saying he did or didn't, but I believe he did just by watching the video of it. But I mean, you got Noah Gregson. Um, I'm sure is Byron running it this year?
yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so.
So that'll be interesting to watch them two go at it in the late models. But I mean, that's the Snowball Derby. You got a lot of the biggest names in late models going down there to run it. So it ought to be a good show.
Yeah. So who do you think needed this whole off season to regroup, recharge, and basically revamp their life going into next season?
The biggest team that needed this offseason to revamp has got to be Legacy Motor Club. So we thought they were going to have a kind of bounce back year after half of a lame duck season 2 years ago when they switched, or their last year was Chevrolet, and then this year was their first full time season with Toyota. And we are expecting as a fan base a lot of more speed out of them because of how easily 2311 kind of, they didn't have race winning speed at first, but they had a lot of speed being a startup team. Now, part of that as well is their alliance with JGR, which Legacy Motor Club didn't happen. They were still getting more information from Toyota than they were getting from Chevrolet, but they still, I don't believe, we're getting half the information that Joe Gibbs and 2311 were getting. I think this offseason, Legacy Motor Club has the most to gain. Rick Ware Racing made a case to kind of be there too with that late season swap with Justin Haley and Corey LaJoy. But I feel like the Rick Ware cars had, or at least the 31 with Justin Haley in it, had more speed than either of the Legacy Motor Club cars did,
Yeah.
week in and week out.
I I can't agree more, but I mean, quickly, what is your thoughts about the crew cake swap with Gayheart out and Chris Gill going over to Denny Hamlin?
I think Chris Gabehart is still going to have a pretty heavy hand in that. But I also think that we may see a little bit of a decline in Denny Hamlin next season, especially there towards the beginning, because they're going to have to develop that relationship together. I mean, Hamlin and Gabehart have been together a long time. So they have that relationship. The Gabehart knows exactly what Denny wants or needs with how they communicate, whereas Denny and his new crew chief are going to have to establish that trust, that bond, that what's the word I'm looking for? Not camaraderie, but either way, they're going to have to establish that, and who knows? It may be a good fresh change for Denny Hamlin that he needed, and he may go on a tear. But I think coming up this season is going to be Denny's hardest shot at the championship in a while.
Yeah. So so real quick, is there anything else you think we should cover?
I mean, I'll go ahead and say it now. My way too early champion prediction is going to be Ryan Blaney.
Ryan Blaney.
So if the pattern continues, which I'm a Josh Berry fan, but Ryan's my second driver, so I may be a little biased in that. But if the pattern continues, Logano won the first year next gen, Blaney won last year. I would argue that Blaney should have won this year, and Logano got in on a fluke, and by luck, he shouldn't have not been in the championship for. But with Logano winning this year with next gen, I mean, everybody talks about how Ford needs to pick it up at the beginning of the season. Ford's behind. Ford is lacking. Yet, come to the end of the season, at least one Ford team is hard to beat. And Blaney is kind of, I don't think he's quite on the talent level as Larson, but it'd be a case to argue with it here, especially the later half of the season. Blaney was either running top five or he was wrecked out of the race and finished 35th, something like that. And Larson does that a lot. So, but I don't know. Like I said, circling back to the beginning of the episode, man, I think with the Kroger sponsorship coming over to RFK with Ryan Priest and all that money coming in, I expect some big things out of RFK next season. And I also am interested to see how JTD Doherty responds, because Kroger has been over there for years with
Yes.
Stenhouse and a little bit with Ryan Priest when Ryan Priest ran for JTG Doherty Racing. So that's going to be an interesting development going into next season. Looking forward to see what Rodney Childers is able to do at Spire. I don't think they've assigned him, I think, a crew chief yet or a
Yeah.
driver yet.
Guyver.
But
Yeah.
that's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. This season's going to be a make it or break it season for Corey LaJoy.
Yeah.
He built Spire up, but then Spire outgrew his talent level, and that was evident with them replacing him with, what was that, 6-7 races to go in the season,
Yeah.
and he didn't really do much in the Rick Ware cars. Um, Something, a little back burner story to keep us entertained this season.
Yeah. Well, guys, I will do it for the special holiday edition of Full Throttle. We'll be back later on with more special guests and maybe another episode like this with Kate. Who knows what
Absolutely.
I'll come up with next? I will
Absolutely.
see you next time on Full Throttle.
Later.
Goodbye, everyone.